And halfway across, I saw there was a bomb crater in the field. They were machine gun fire, and I dove into that shell. And I said, that's getting too close. They must be able to see us. Now I'm the only guy on the field. I could take a lot, you know, at that age. You're 18 is when you know it all. You think you do. That changes. But I only had maybe 100 yards to the house. But I ran across that field, and I never saw any machine gun. I could see the dirt at my feet. That's when the other one hit. And when that hit, it blew my hand right off.
Don't worry about me, I'll get along. Forget about me, be happy, my love.
My name's Russel, and I'm from Shepherdstown, Pennsylvania. My birthday is April the 17th, and I'm 98 years old. I was born in Regiment, Pennsylvania. I was pretty young at that time. I do know one thing, we didn't have a lot of money. And some nights we would say, Mama, I'm hungry. He said, well, we have some soda crackers. That's about all we had, you know, to eat. I had a good mother, very good mother, and a meal, and there wasn't that much, and I could use a little bit more. Mother would say, I don't want mine, I had enough. She would give it to us. I could take a lot, you know, at that age. You're 18 is when you know it all. You think you do. That changes. The day you were 18, you had to register for the draft. I did. I was called in for the physical, and I took my physical, and they sent me home again. But finally they called me and said, report for induction. A couple guys from town here were up, and we were in line to be drafted, and they were taking them Army, Navy. What would you like to do? I said, well, I think I'd pick the Navy, Army. Camp Landing, Florida. We went right to basic. There they gave me the uniforms, and I had all kinds of training. I crawled under barbed wire, and they fired machine gun fire over your head with tracer bullets. I did that in the rain, and when you come out the other end safely, your rifle inspection to see whether it's clean. In that sand, it was hard keeping them clean down there. We practiced in the range on everything. The mortars, the bazookas, machine gun fire, heavy machine gun. You shot hand grenades with the rifle. They were tough, and I think they made it to get you to hate the war, so you could be ready to fight. We went over on, there were civilian ships that were made into troop carriers. I went over on the USS Wakefield. And one day ahead of us was the Queen Mary. And from there we went across the English Channel, and when you got across the English Channel, they picked you up with trucks and put you on the front line. The Company G, 18th Regiment of the 1st Division in Belgium. And I got out there, it was snowy and cold. It was in sometime in January, maybe around the 6th of January, in that area. And took us off the truck, and one of the soldiers came and said, follow me. And we walked out along an old fence row, and at the middle of the night, and dark and cold. And I said, what are we gonna do now? I said, you're gonna meet up with a fellow in the foxhole here, and he'll tell you what to do. He's been around. So a guy said, halt, who goes there? It was a guy in the foxhole. Then he gave him the password for the night, and the password at that time was purple car. You had to identify yourself. Then he said, I have a replacement here for you. And he dumped me off, and he left. And the guy in the foxhole said, you're probably pretty tired, you want to get a little sleep. He said, you sleep, I'll stand guard, you know. And I said, so what do we do now? I said, what goes on then? Well, I don't know too much. Yesterday was my first day here. So he was gonna help me along. The next morning, we marched across Germany, full field pack. There was a tank, and it was at a fence row, and they dumped us off there at this fence row, and they came with a bazooka and said, Russ, you and your partner are going to be the bazooka bearers. So he got the bazooka. I had 6 rounds of ammunition, and they were heavy. They weighed at least a pound apiece. Yeah. And so they dumped us off at a fence row, and there was a house across an open field. Evidently, there was a guy in a German in the house at a window, and he was firing at us. So he said, put a bazooka round in that house. Well, he put the bazooka together and put it on his shoulders, and I had to load it and hook it up to a battery. I said, ready to fire. And he's pulling, nothing happening. He said, you don't have it hooked up right. I said, I know what I'm doing. I did it before. It's hooked up right. And he's down here. Boom, all of a sudden it went off. He went about 40 feet over the top of the house. That was the last end of the bazooka. Usually what happened when we would take a town, our group would organize before the town, and the artillery would fire on it, and maybe bombing too, and try to drive them out of there. By the time we were there weren't too many in the town anymore. Well, we'd gone into this. At the time, I didn't know what town it was, but we met at a farmhouse, and there was an open field, might have been a good football field or more from the town, and we were organized in the barnyard of a farm, the whole company, and we were waiting for get off together, and they told us, go over there, and when you get secured, meet in the field hospital. And out there where we had a cross, there was a foxhole, and there was a German in there, and he was popping up shooting. And one of the guys said to me, he said, cover me, I'll go out, I'll get him. Keep him pinned down. So everybody was shooting at this foxhole, and he was down in there, of course. My buddy went out around the side and came in the side bit, and he made motions when he could see it. He went there. Of course, he had taken care of him. He got within 20 yards of the group, and he dropped. That I saw got killed. When we crossed the Siegfried Line, that was bumping pretty good on the other side. A lot of field bombs, and our first Scot stepped on the mine. And he said, the second Scot had to go out because we were going to go take a town, and there were some pillboxes out in the field. It was Bonn, Germany. He said, I'm not going out there. I'm not going out there. And the guard, as the platoon sergeant as he was, get out there. That's an order. Foxhole Bully said, Russel and I'll go out there. I said, you don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, I'll be the first Scot. He said, you'll get an automatic promotion. But we stayed in Bonn overnight. Now, we walked in there, and we could stay in houses for overnight. We could pick a house, a place that must have been a mansion, and we could stay in there sleep in there indoors. It was March the 24th, 1945. The name of the town was Uckerath. It hadn't been dark yet when we were charging across the field till I was at maybe 4 or 5 o'clock. They couldn't beat us anymore. They didn't have the ammunition, they didn't have the organization. So they decided to make one last hold in this town. And they dug in, and they had machine gun fire, and they had artillery. I think they might have had tanks. But anyways, we went across this, and halfway across I saw there was a bomb crater in the field, and they were machine gun fire, and I dove into that, and there was another guy in there. And I was laying in there, and every now I hear a shell getting, I said, that's getting too close. They must be able to see us. I'm getting out of here. Now, my buddies, that buddy that was in there, I don't know who he was just in our company. He said, no, I'm not, I'm staying. I got up. Now I'm the only guy on the field, but I only had maybe 100 yards to the house. But I ran across that field, and I never saw any machine gun. I could see the dirt at my feet. How I got across there, I don't know. Well, when I got into the basement, when the first shell that came in, you could hear the artillery coming in, the whistle, because we knew artillery that was high-pitched was going over. You didn't even duck. But when this first one came in, you could pretty close. It didn't do anything. It wasn't close enough to have any harm to the building. But we knew that was close, and we knew which side it was coming from, so everybody wanted to go in the other room. And when pushing through that, that's when the other one hit. And when that hit, it blew my hand right off. Shock and numb. What I felt was the pain up here where it took three. They'd opened it up and laid it open. And there was a squad medic in there, and I called for medic. And there was also a second lieutenant in there. Anyways, he was there, and I heard the lieutenant say the squad medic was over-treating another guy on the floor. He said, "Let that guy alone. This guy needs more than he does. Come over here." So he came over and wanted to put a compressed pad on, and when he did, these two fingers came out on a little string in the back here, and he's trying to stuff them up into this bandage. And the lieutenant says, "Those are getting in your way." He said, "Why did you cut them off?" The squad medic says, "Sir, I dare not do any cutting or surgery. I can only give first aid." He said, "I'll give you an order. Cut them off, that's an order." And I said to him, "You might as well." I could have done it. They were just dangling on a piece of skin. And that's all that was left of my hand, about that much bone at the wrist. And they got to the field hospital. They must have put me in the operating room, and they put a cast on there and put a wire guard on here and a sock, and they tried to pull the skin and flesh to see whether they could close it. They said, "For more operations, so you're gonna go home. You're finished with the war." In this field hospital, the Red Cross had what they call gray ladies. This one gray lady come to me and said, "Did you write home yet?" I said, "No." "Would you write a letter, dictate a letter, and I'll write a letter home to your parents?" And I said, "Yeah, that would be nice." She wrote this letter and sent it home and told them exactly what happened, that I lost my right hand. And I told them not to worry. I'm coming home, I'm safe, and I'll be all right. She sent that letter home to my mother, and the very next day, a knock on the door with a telegram from the War Department. "Your son, Russel Sadison, has been seriously wounded in action," period. That was it. They didn't know nothing. Imagine what that would have been like for them to get that telegram. A lot of people come and wear my hat and say, "Thank you for your service." I said, "You're welcome, thank you. I appreciate that, but don't come to me and say, 'You're our hero.'" I said, "I don't want that." And that's why I didn't talk about it. I was brave and no, I'm not the hero, and I'm proud that I served. I did my duty.